Old-fashioned remedies sometimes are the best forms of medicine that can cure any illness. Do you remember when we were growing up, and I'm quite sure a lot of you all do, whenever we were sick and we had a problem, our parents didn't run to the doctors every 5 minutes. They would tell you, get some of that salve, or they would get some Father John's 666, some of the old-fashioned remedies, or cuticle ointment that could take away any scar or blemish from your skin. I'm Tyrone Bowman. This is Tyrone Bowman Tonight. So I'm going to get right down to it. There are a lot of wonderful, innovative things that are happening in our world, and you know what? It's good to see that society is moving forward in a fast, progressive way. And as a result of that, we are able to enjoy the amenities of life in ways that we've never been able to enjoy them before. Our foreparents, who were trailblazers and pioneers and who paved the way for many of us to be able to live, laugh, and love, to be able to be, to do, and to have, paid a terrible price. But there's one remedy that I want to talk about today. And never forget this, because at some point in time, during the course of your life, you're going to need exactly what I'm talking about. I know individuals who have doctorate degrees, master's degrees. They've been to the finest universities in the world and they can't get a job. I know individuals who have every type of certification under the sun, and yet every door is closed in their face. Just when it seems like you understand the game, they change the rules of engagement. And when the rules are changed, that's when individuals lose hope. They lose faith. And I'm telling you, prayer will fix it. Oh, people might say, well, I don't believe in prayer. It doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. A lot of individuals who are atheistic that I know, they tell me, Tyrone, I don't believe in a superior being or the man upstairs. And then I stop them and say, first of all, he's not the man upstairs. You're going to show some respect for the one who gave you life, because ultimately you're going to meet him one day, whether you want to or not. And number two, whether you believe in him or not is not the question. He believes in you because he gave you gifts, talents, and abilities, and he gave you life. So for this topic of discussion, let me talk to you. And this is going to be the final discussion regarding prayer. On yesterday, I recorded 2 segments entitled The Prayer Life of Jesus. Now, in this last and final segment, I'm going to be a little more detailed in terms of giving you scriptural references that you can look up for yourself. Don't take anyone's word for anything. Make individuals prove what they're talking about. I don't care if they're a doctor, lawyer, pastor, teacher, professor, an economist, physicist, etc. It doesn't matter. Make them prove it, line upon line, precept upon precept. As is in the case of so-called miracle workers, many of them are charlatans. They're phonies. They remind me of musicians. And the one thing I like about musicians, they allow you to understand that what they're doing is just a mere illusion. It is not real. And then they will begin to show you, once this show is over, sometimes during the middle of it, exactly how they did it. So this is not an illusion. This is real. This is true. So, what is prayer? Simply put, it is dialogue. It is communication. According to the Holy Scriptures, the disciples of the Messiah, of the Christ, the Christos, came to him and teach us to pray, as John also taught his disciples how to pray. Then he began to tell them. On another occasion, he said, teach us how to increase our faith. Then he gave them an illustration. Prayer is nothing more than a conversation. You don't have to make it deep. It doesn't have to be mystical, and it doesn't have to be heavy. Now, a lot of people are into meditorial type things, and I'm a meditator myself, and I believe in the divine power of meditation because it is an inward, silent conversation that is going on between myself and the omnipotent one. The things that you cannot see are more powerful than the things that you see every day. The world of the immortals, the world of the supernatural, the world of the divine, it is real. And if you don't believe that prayer will fix it, I dare you, when you get into dire circumstances, pardon me, I'm redundant, pardon me on that one, but when you come to a place, a fork in the road, you come to a situation that is unexplainable, and it seems like you can't handle it, when you are facing that mortgage that you can't get, the school that you want your child to go to, the house that you want to have, the car that you're trying to purchase, when you can't get it, you better believe that prayer will fix it. Now let me give you some scriptural references about the prayer life of Jesus. I'm going to go through them and you can look them up at your leisure. Now, the first set, that's all coming from the Gospel according to Matthew. Let's get down to it once again. Number one, the Gospel according to Matthew, the 6th chapter, verses 5 through 15. Number two, the Gospel according to Matthew, the 14th chapter, verses 22 through 23. Number three, the Gospel according to Matthew, the 21st chapter and the 22nd verse. Number four, the Gospel according to Matthew, the 26th chapter and the 26th verse. Number five, the Gospel according to Matthew, the 26th chapter, verses 38 through 39. Number six, the Gospel according to Matthew, the 26th chapter, verses 41 through 42. Number seven, the Gospel according to Matthew, the 26th chapter, verse 44. Number eight, the Gospel according to Matthew, the 26th chapter, verse 53. Then in the Gospel according to Mark, I'm going to leave that one there. Now let's go over to the Gospel according to Luke. The Gospel according to Luke, I think I went through some of these on last night, and I don't want to be redundant here. But in the Gospel according to Mark, are you ready? Check it out. Number one is the Gospel according to Mark, chapter number 1, verse 35. The Gospel according to Mark, the 6th chapter, and the 45th and the 46th verse. Number three, the Gospel according to Mark, the 6th chapter, verses 41 through 46. Number four, the Gospel according to Mark, the 7th chapter, verse 34. Number five, the Gospel according to Mark, the 11th chapter, verse 17. Number six, the Gospel according to Mark, the 14th chapter, the 22nd and the 23rd verse. Number eight, the Gospel according to Mark, the 14th chapter and the 35th verse. Number nine, the Gospel according to Mark, the 14th chapter and the 39th verse. Number 10, the Gospel according to Mark, the 15th chapter and the 34th verse. These are all instances regarding Jesus and his prayer life. Sometimes he prayed in the mountain. Sometimes he prayed in the valley. Sometimes he prayed in people's homes. Sometimes he prayed with a crowd. Sometimes he prayed alone. And never underestimate what prayer can do. Communication, dialogue. It's so vitally important. When you're going through life, when you're dealing with circumstances and situations that are beyond your control, as an inspirational, motivational teacher, I want to inspire you and motivate you to have a healthy, productive prayer life. I was dealing with a situation among my family, and it was one of a dire emergency. And I told them prayer will fix it. And you know, when individuals are going through something right away, the emotions rule them. Well, let me tell you something about your emotions. Your emotions aren't going to solve the problem. Being erratically emotional 24 hours a day, out of control, hollering, screaming, getting upset, throwing temper tantrums, throwing stuff around. At the end of the day, the problem is still going to be there. There's a right time to be emotional, and then there's a wrong time to be emotional. Emotional people can become extremely destructive. Why? Because if you are led by your emotions 24 hours a day, everything you say and do is going to be based upon emotions. Prayer is real. Prayer is powerful. Prayer does work. Why do you think they have chapels in hospitals? Because when a doctor is preparing to bring bad news to a family, and they've done all that they can do and they can't do any more, they ask them this question: would you like to have a moment? Then they proceed to go to the chapel. What? To meditate, for prayer. Many individuals who are rich and powerful and famous, they would give anything to have peace of mind. They would give anything to have their sick child healed or their infinite loved one taken care of. They would pay any amount of money to have the power of prayer to work in circumstances and situations. I remember many years ago when I went to go visit one of my attorneys. We were sitting down, we were talking, and he was dealing with a certain problem. And he said, I believe if you just pray for me while you're here, that this business deal will get solved. I said, no problem. I quietly prayed within myself, but I was praying very powerfully. And I looked up and he had a smile on his face. The business deal was solved. You can search scripture, or you can read through philosophy. You can read the lives of so many men and women who have lived, and they've come along this way. One of the reasons why the civil rights movement was so powerful, because there were men and women who were fasting and praying behind the scenes. If you think you can make it in your own strength, your own power, on your own ability, if you think your looks are going to get you to where you need to go to, if you think that your degrees are just going to be your foundational structure in life, or if you think your body is going to be the impetus that's going to cause you to survive in this world, you are so wrong. The reason why a lot of people are bound or hooked or addicted to certain behavioral patterns in this world, because no one is talking about the power of prayer. A 12-step program is useless without a divine power to back it up. It's nothing but mere words. Ladies and gentlemen, become inspired, become motivated, and begin to develop a private time of prayer. Don't be ashamed to pray. If Jesus wasn't ashamed to pray, then why should I? The prayer life of Jesus is one of the most powerful things that's been left on record for us to emulate, for us to style and mold and make and pattern our prayer life after. Everything that Jesus did, he did it as a human being that was divinely anointed or empowered by Almighty Jehovah or Yahweh. And as my Muslim friends would say, by Allah. Why do you think Jesus spent time in prayer? A God doesn't have to spend time in prayer, but a man does. And when he was on this earth, he was the embodiment of Almighty God, incarnate in human form. And he was subject to every law, every emotion, everything that human beings lived and dealt with and experienced. He did also. That's why he's called the high priest of our profession. I don't care what you're dealing with. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter what you're facing. And it doesn't matter what you may even face now, tomorrow, or futuristically. Prayer will fix it. Never surrender. Never quit.